Cool.
Thank you again, Paul, for coming on, mate, to join us to look over your White Dwarf that you chose. It's issue 228, and it looks like Blood Angels and third edition 40k were at its prime at this stage.
Yes, yeah. Well, this was I think the release of the Blood Angels Codex. I think I was a store manager at the time. I'm not sure if I was a store manager at the shop that where they put me in, where my article was, Richmond at the time. I think they had a habit of putting you in a magazine and then whipping you off somewhere else pretty sharpish. So it wouldn't sometimes where it said you were was not relevant to where you were at the time.
Right. Okay. But there's a reason why we chose this particular magazine because you were actually featured in it. And
That's right, yes.
this.
Um, they used to do a section about the stores, and yeah, they had a feature on my store that I was manager at the time, Richmond, in London.
Right, and now this is the Australian version. Now, the Australian edition of White Dwarf doesn't actually have that article, so we'll bring up some pages later, and we'll talk about that probably at the end.
Yeah,
Go through just some of the articles that you want to touch on. We'll look at the contents here, and of course, we've got Wayne England's wonderful White Dwarf. It looks like Christmas time around this time.
that's right.
And a White
It's
Dwarf.
got a Christmas White Dwarf.
Yep. And some Dark Elder Raider there as well. In all
Yeah,
red, very red at the moment. So some looks like some Slan or Lizardmen and some Dogs of War.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But this was, I think, was when they started to release the Dogs of War figures, which were again beautiful sculpts by the Perrys. Um, leaning really heavily on the historical aesthetic, but such great figures.
Now we've got the White Dwarf blokes. We've got Graham Davey, who's the head of the Grey for Now Games behind Test of
Yeah,
Honor, and good friend of
Andy
Andy Hobday.
Hobday.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
Yourself.
my
Yep.
yeah.
So it's all feeding back into the history of Games Workshop that all started there.
Yeah, and Paul Sawyer, part of Warlord Games, who I did some Romans for, and they bought my company Bolt Action miniatures that I used to run with Simon Bardry before it became the big game that is now for Warlord Games.
Yeah. And there's Dave Taylor from Dave Taylor Miniatures down there because there's of course the Oz.
Australian one, yeah.
Dave was the editor then, and now he's gone into bigger and better things, producing these beautiful books, dedicated towards miniature painting or modeling from different
Yep.
artists around the world. So it's really, really cool that he's gone to do that in the US now, which is great. We've got Painters Wanted at the top here. So if you want to join the Games Workshop Design Studio, and they're currently looking for fresh blood, which is quite I don't know that's the best way to put it, fresh blood, but to join the talented team of figure painters, does that sound like they're vampires or something? Which
Strangely, they're advertising that in your Australian one.
yeah, that's weird, isn't it?
Not far to go, is it?
Yeah.
Warhammer Monthly. I've got a signed first edition of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they released that when I was working at Plaza Store, and they had all the artists come down and sign copies.
Then we've got Angel of Death with Gav Thorpe talking about obviously the release of the Blood Angel Codex for third edition 40k. Did you actually play 40k at all, Paul, or not?
No, I tried to get try to do a Black Templars army. Again, it was something I'd always thought, oh, that would be cool. I could do this, and then start, and then just just did nothing for me really.
Yeah.
I really wanted to do like a guard army, and I had two boxes of the those the Praetorians, the Imperial Guard. I had a couple of boxes of those, and I was going to do all of the heavy weapons in sort of Royal Artillery uniform and stuff like everything I did had sort of a historical
Sure.
yeah, leaning to it, but Space Marines didn't really do it for me.
So it looks like it's quite a 40k heavy issue, this one, and I believe this is some kind of battle report featuring the new army, of course, with Gordon Davidson. So Gordon actually had a really nice looking Orc and Goblin army.
Yeah, I'd never forgive him for not letting me take a sprue of Empire out of the studio once that the Perrys gave me. It was towards the end of, I think it was like the last week I was working there, and I'd sold heaps of subscriptions for White Dwarf and won a competition, and it was a 3 kilo of lead, or no, it might have even been like 5 kilos of lead or something that you could go and pick because that was the days where you could go and pick your stuff up in the studio, wasn't it?
Yes.
By weight.
Yep, that's
So
right.
I went up with a mate, and was sitting in Bugman's bar having some lunch, and I met someone I knew who was working in the studio, and he let me and my mate. He gave us a tour of the studio. In someone off a mate who'd never worked for Games Workshop, and they just sort of said, "Oh yeah, you can go around the studio." Gave us a tour and saw the Perrys, and then they had some of the new Empire plastics, and they sort of let me. And then as I went out, Gordon Davison went, "You can't have that," and had a right go at me. And then I was like crestfallen.
So there you go. Codex Space Marines. It's all 30k, very heavy on 40k because it was just the biggest thing they could sell at Games Workshop, and still is. And with a Space Marine on it, it's going to sell basically. Inferno magazine. Wow, there you go.
They were trying a lot of different things at the time with like Inferno, and there was the Warhammer Journal as well, wasn't there? They had lots of specialist game stuff as well, which was quite entertaining.
And then we've got the Warhammer Dogs of War release for 5th edition Fantasy with Lorenzo Lupo.
Yeah, some of my favourite miniatures. The Galloper guns were my favourite out of this.
Right. Now they're worth an absolute fortune now, apparently, on the second-hand market. If you have the originals of the Dogs of War box sets and that kind of thing, they're
well, I did sell some recently on eBay. I found I was going through my in my studio, and I found a couple of old figure cases, and I opened them up, and they were just full of old Hammer stuff. So that went on eBay pretty swiftly.
Okay. Well, I would have paid the mortgage for the month, mate. So that's good. That's
yes, it did actually. So that was good.
So here's Mordheim. Now, this is your favorite game. You told me in our interview the other day.
Yeah, it was one of my favorite because it didn't take much to do, and the figures again were so you could add them into an Empire army that they could have. Had so much flavour, and you could do so much with them. I had I did a sort of an ex-convict that had sort of survived hanging, so he still had the noose around his head and the hood over his head, that sort of thing. You could really go to town on it. Don't know where that went. Probably in the bin somewhere, or my mother-in-law's.
One day, but here we go. We've got Chris Fitzpatrick, and maybe you have met him or talked to him because he's a
no. I'd never met him. Yeah, he did. I think he was sort of the next real fine sculptor after Jess Goodwin, wasn't he? Sort of that style. Yeah. His Dark Elder stuff was amazing.
Yeah, he's very talented miniature designer, that's for sure. I mean, especially the dragon. I think that was for the Dogs of War, wasn't it? That dragon.
That was the plastic talisman dragon, wasn't it?
That's right. Yep, that's exactly what it was. Yeah, that's right. I've got a calendar. I didn't know they actually released calendars back then. There you go.
Only £8.
Wow. Okay, bargain. Then you've got Dark Raiders. Nick Davis goes through, looks like the Dark Eldar
Yeah,
for third edition. And looks like it's a battle force they're releasing at this stage. But yeah, to be honest, they just didn't do it for me. I looked at the Dark Eldar and I was really looking forward to them, thinking that Jez was going to do it and he was going to do the same thing he did with the Eldar, and I was bitterly disappointed by them. But it looks like Dark Eldar was released at this stage, had their own codex.
yeah, because they came out in the box set with the Space Marines, didn't they?
Yeah, and I'm thinking around this stage, I think third edition was just released because it seems very heavy towards third edition 40k at this stage in this magazine.
Yeah, because it was '98 that
Yeah, that's right.
was released.
That's right. You're right. Yeah. Now, Dave Kane is another legend within Warhammer. I think he's an accomplished Warhammer general, and he won, numerous tournaments during the time from fourth edition onwards. So there we
I
go.
love these little
Me too.
artistic vignettes.
Yeah, me too. Wasn't it David Gallagher who did all those?
Yeah, he's been posting them up on
Was
either Instagram or somewhere. I've been seeing them lately. They've been great to see. Real nostalgia.
Yeah, 69. Yes, these ones here.
Yeah,
The training men at arms or the spearmen, and
which they're bringing some of them back for the next release. The mounted bowmen, which were beautiful figures.
yes, that's right. Yeah, well, that's good, isn't it? It's nice to see they're bringing back some metal models.
Yeah, well, I think they're getting a lot of hate for bringing back old figures.
Now we've got Weimar Siege. Now, this is still in 5th edition, of course. We've got Siege Works 2, which must be a follow-up for an article that he did before, talking with Owen Branham and Mark Jones. Did you play any Siege games in the store at all, Paul?
We must have done. We must have just lined everything. You had those big battles that kind of ended up just rolling a 4, and you succeeded in whatever you needed to do. Get everyone to bring their units in for a big. That's the part of the army. That's the first page. Yeah,
that's the first page of the army. Yeah. Okay. So, as we said before, this wasn't actually featured in the Australian version or edition of the magazine of White Dwarf at that time. So, Paul was very kind enough to take some snapshots of his magazine he has there in his home of his army that was featured here in 1998.
It looks like I took it on a potato cam as well. And also, to be honest, the pictures are tiny as well.
Yeah, they're very, very small. I really like this. It looks like a Mordheim guy carrying a standard. You converted there.
Yeah. It's one of the I'll tell you what it was. It was one of the Necromunda.
Ah, right. That's where it's from. I was wondering where it's from. I saw the mask, and I thought maybe it's Mordheim, but you're right. It's one of the Redemptionists.
Redemptionists, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the guy next to him is an old Marauder miniature.
Oh, I love the Marauder Empire stuff's beautiful.
That's my musician for my Knights Panther. So that was the head and trumpet from a Bretonian figure. With I think it's the head of the Grand Master of the helmet of the Grand Master of the Knights Panther, and a really badly sculpted comedy tiger head or panther head on the side.
Looks good, mate. Looks nice. Looks like the Pink Panther. Yeah,
I think it's the Elector Count, one of the Elector Counts, Bretonian, one of the plastic Bretonian helmet heraldry pieces on top, and then just slightly turned his body with a green stuff sash around his middle.
So nice classic halberdier unit here, or spearman unit actually. Sorry.
Spearman. So that was my first regiment. So I started it. This was the first and only time I'd ever taken a disciplined approach to painting an army. So I would buy a pack in the shop when I was working there. So, and then through the day, I would paint 4 spearmen. Once I got 4, then I would buy another pack and then paint 4 spearmen and then do it that way.
And these are the plastic ones. You finally got them.
Yeah, well, they said, "Oh, we're going to get you in the White Dwarf, but we're going to send you some of the plastic halberdiers." So they'd sent me a load before. So this was, and I even made up a little bit of bump about me jumping for joy because to see which caused quite a lot of amusement. Yeah, they. So I got some pre-release of those, which was nice. Metal miniatures. They're the old Marauder ogres, so they were kind of Empire themed, so that made quite an easy transition into the army.
Yeah, the beautiful models. Love those figures. Some pistoliers.
Again, great figures. And then I think the middle one is a conversion with one of the
Yep.
Spanish type of handgunner heads on.
Yep, you're right. With some great cannons in there, a mortar.
I haven't taken any picture of the other side, which had the white wolves in and great swords.
This one. And the steam
tank. Yeah, I have.
Halflings in there, handgunners, great swords, and Kislevite archers. Yeah, so a nice array of different units in there. It's wonderful.
I went to John Stallard, to the owner of Warlord Games, and I saw it, and he'd mixed up all the crews. I was like, no, you can't do that. Well, obviously he can because it's his army now. But
yeah, I tell you, man, you got to buy it back off him. That's for sure. Well, you sold a whole lot of old Hammer stuff. You can use that money to buy it back off John.
Yeah, that's
a weak moment. Get him in the curry shop with some beers and get him in a weak moment. Get that paper signed to seal them over to you. But Paul's been wonderful to go over this issue with you, to feature your article. I really appreciate your time to come on today to the Crown of Command to talk about it. And mate, it's a stunning looking army, and I hope it brought back some good memories for you, mate.
Great, thank you very much.
No problem, mate. Anytime. Okay, Paul. Well, until next time, mate, take care of yourself, and I look forward to seeing what you do with Futsal Miniatures with future releases, mate.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, mate. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.